welcome to the Next Step podcast, where our mission is to help you to take your next step in your journey with Christ by introducing you to people who are doing the same. They're people that are inside the life of our church. But today is episode number 50, and today we have John and Lesley WHISNER with us, who've been all over the place, and I can't wait for you to meet them. And they're just vital members of our church and volunteers, and just welcome. Glad you guys came to the podcast and sharing your life with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. It's great.
So tell us your story. Begin where you want to begin, and then take us there.
Wow. Where do we begin?
Want me to start?
Yeah, why don't you start?
I'll try to trim it down. But so I met him when he was 15 years old.
Awesome.
And I was 16. We were from Wilson, North Carolina.
Home of Barton College, Barton University.
Barton,
That's right.
Yeah.
Parker's
It was
Barbecue.
Wilson Christian, and now it's Barton.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we met on a bus, and I was a cheerleader, and his parents were going to an away game, and normally the cheerleaders got to have a ride, but our ride canceled on us, and so we ended up on this bus, and the cheerleaders weren't going to have any food. And so these nice people up front heard about the cheerleaders in the back. They were going to have to cheer with no food, and sent about a whole bunch of picnic stuff back to us, and it was John's parents.
Wow.
And on the way back, we ended up, I got to sit beside him, and he was kind of new man at school. And just so y'all know, for senior superlatives, I was up for most talkative my senior year, and he was up for most wanted date.
Okay, all right.
So
that kind of fits together.
That tracks. That definitely tracks. And so anyway, I had a big crush on him, but I had dated this boy on and off for about 3 years of high school. And but I somehow I knew. And so anyway, that boy broke up with me, and I had my friend. He worked at Burger King.
Okay.
So I had my friend go with me every weekend to Burger King, and I'd sit so I could see him.
Yeah.
And one day he came and sat down and asked me to go. We were underage, but you could go dance at a place, and they stamped you so you couldn't drink, but you were underage, but you could go and have fun. And so he asked me to go there, and anyway.
You remember the name of the place?
Mr. Whipple.
Mr. Whipple. All right. I like it.
But he couldn't drive because he was 15.
Okay.
And so anyway, that was, we started dating that summer, and then I went off to UNC Chapel Hill, and he had one more year in high school.
Okay.
And then I broke up with him, and my old boyfriend called and said he wanted to get back together in 2 weeks. And so I called John, terribly sorry, it was rude, but broke up with him. And then for 2 years, we weren't dating, but we were still in love. And then crazily enough, he came home, and I would come home, visit with his family, and we decided to get back together. So our dating was from Monterey, California, where he'll tell you what he was doing.
Okay.
And Wilson, North Carolina. So I saved up, I worked. And every spring break, fall break, and one summer between junior and senior year, I worked for a Levi's store at the Salinas Mall.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he was getting out of active duty the same year I was graduating. So he took leave. I graduated one weekend on a Saturday. The next Saturday we were married. And then we went back, he out-processed. We trekked all the way across the United States, and he started at UNC Charlotte.
Wow. No kidding.
And now, all these years later, he can fill some details in, but all these years later, we are now back in Charlotte, back in our home state, and this May will be 38 years we've been married.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
So now he can...
You went in the military after school?
I was, yeah. So I got out of high school. I was 17 when I graduated from high school, and decided to join the military. And so I went in the military and went to basic training down in Alabama. And then I went down to Dothan to the Flight Training Center. And I was actually a crew chief on a search and rescue helicopter in the Army. And so I was out in Monterey, California, flying live missions. If we weren't doing military stuff, we were really providing a live flight and a search and rescue for the civilian population. So that's how I earned my college. And Lesley and I, like she said, we got back together and dated long distance. And I got out the same year that she graduated from Carolina, and we got married, and I came here to go to school.
Wow, that is so cool. So did you fly in a helicopter like the one that just went down ever before?
It was before that. It was Huey's. That's how long ago.
Okay, all right.
Exactly.
Wow, that's cool. So I have a friend that is part of our church from a distance, has been here for a while. Jason Rachel's a pilot. He actually said that he flew on that plane that went
Oh my!
He's been on that specific plane.
Oh,
wow.
I wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just something.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that y'all never had to deal with any tragedies like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you make it back here. You go to Charlotte, and are you a business major? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And what were you major? What did you major at Chapel Hill?
Industrial relations, which was basically, it would be HR.
Okay.
People
Awesome.
in the workforce.
Yep.
I'm a people person.
I like it. I think I see that.
Yeah, so I came here to school, and I would go to school all day, and then I worked at this store that I don't even know if it's still here or not. It's on Independence Boulevard called Sports Unlimited.
Yeah, I remember Sports Unlimited.
Yeah, I actually helped open that store.
No kidding. Right in front of East Meck High School.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I sold guns. That's what I did. I worked in the hunting department, and
Right.
used my military background and did a bunch of that growing up, and so did that. Graduated in 3 years, and graduated on a Thursday, and started work in Raleigh on a Monday. And
Okay.
we packed up, left our apartment, moved to Raleigh, and I started work and started my career.
How cool is that? So where did you go to work for first?
So I went to a company called Ceridian, which is in the human capital management business. I started as an entry-level sales rep, and I was actually there for 19 years. And when I left, I was the senior VP of sales. I ran the whole sales organization, was on the executive team. So, great 19 years. Had the great fortune of being blessed with some really good mentors that just taught me how to run businesses and rebuild teams and that kind of thing. And we moved, I think, six times
in the first 11 years.
Yeah, 6 times the first 11 years we were married. We moved, picked up and moved.
All
And where
for
are
the
some of the
same
places
company.
you lived?
Well, we went from Charlotte to Raleigh, Raleigh to Atlanta, Atlanta to Columbia, Maryland, Columbia, Maryland to Richmond, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Then we went Atlanta to South Carolina and South Carolina here.
Wow.
We're home.
Yep.
How about that?
Yeah.
It's amazing. You took some time, semi-retired for a year or so, right?
Mhm.
And you lived out in Georgia in the boondocks, is that right?
Well, we lived in South Carolina.
In South Carolina.
Yeah, around Lake Hartwell.
In Lake Hartwell, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but we were about 30 minutes from anything.
Okay.
And I tell people all the time, the worst thing was you'd be making a specific recipe and forget something like butter and have to drive 30 minutes to the grocery
go
store
get it
and
and
30 minutes back
back.
kind of thing. But yeah.
Wow.
we
Where would
were-
you shop? Which city or town?
We were in Fair Play, and we'd either go to Anderson or
Okay.
you'd head south to Livonia in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you've been in all these organizations. You had an opportunity to make your living and make your mark, and you retired for a while. What brought you back out, and how did you really get back here?
Yeah. My, excuse me.
No problem.
My journey's a little bit different, Ray. I think that I had some really good mentors, like I mentioned early in my business career. And I got into this, I got into the opportunity to be able to join early stage companies and build these companies and from a private equity perspective, and then sell them and take advantage of that. And I got really good advice from a Christian-based mentor that I had.
What was his name?
His name was Peter Bork.
Peter Bork. Okay.
Yeah, Peter lived in our neighborhood, and I'll talk to him a little bit when we start talking about kind of our faith journey and whatnot. But
Excellent.
I remember sitting with Peter after I did the first exit, and him saying, "So what are you going to do? How are you going to get back?" And it had never really crossed my mind before. You know, I kind of thought a little bit about it, and I'd always kind of had this passion around it. And he said, "Listen, you can do it one of two ways. You can either give back along the way, or you can wait till you're all done and do it. My advice is do it along the way, because you'll have the energy, you'll have the excitement for it,
Right.
all those kinds of things. And what you do is a hard thing to do. You work like 9 years in 3 years kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time, recharge, give back, lend your skills and your experience." And so I went to work at a place called North Fulton Community Charities.
Okay.
And it was a food pantry. It was a thrift store, counseled people that were coming out of jail in terms of how to get jobs and that sort of thing, sat on a homelessness task force, and it changed my life.
Wow.
Absolutely changed my life. And so our routine was I went back and did it, I guess, 3 more times. And after every exit, we would do this volunteer, take a year off, at least 6 months, and excuse me, go do volunteer work and give back. And I have this real kind of passion around food insecurity and that kind of thing. So it's been working around food banks and that sort of thing. And it's been life-changing for me.
That
I've gotten
is
a lot
awesome.
more out of it than I've given to it. I know that.
Well, sure. But that's powerful, though. You could just say, I'm going to go spend my fortune and go globe hop, but instead you decided to help people that needed it.
Yeah, I thought that was important to be able to give back, and just, time and resources. And
Right.
like I said, I got 10 times more out of it than I gave to it, for sure.
I don't know if you've already done this yet before, but Trent Smith and some others have volunteered at the Mount Zion Restoration Church, where it's called the Bountiful Blessings on Thursdays. Every Thursday, Rodney Freeman, a friend of mine. By the way, if you're watching out there, you have an interest and you're like John Lesley and you want to help people that have food insecurity, every Thursday at Mount Zion Restoration Church on Crescent Lane in Gastonia, truckloads of food show up and hundreds of cars come show up to be filled with. And I think basically he's fed 650,000 people in the last decade or so.
Amazing.
So anyway, so thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely. So then you meandered back here after a third stint of taking time off and coming back? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we came
back. You had
back.
a dream home out there and you left your dream home? And
Well, we wanted to come back home
to
North Carolina and be closer to our parents, be closer to family. We'd always wanted to come back to North Carolina and because we both grew up here. And so it was great to come home, especially coming back to Charlotte because it had been almost 35 years since we'd been here. Amazing how it had changed. Belmont in particular. I couldn't believe
definitely.
It. And so, yeah, it was good to get back home, closer to family. We built the house of our dreams here in Belmont. And yeah, it's been great to be home.
That is awesome. We're grateful that you're here. And you guys dove in really in a detailed fashion. I'll never forget meeting with you and finding out more about you and kind of why you're here. And Leslie actually had prepared a notebook, y'all. She had a note, it still has it, of all kinds of stuff, what we believe, like social media presence, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, man, I'm glad I was good that last year or so anyway. But I very much appreciated the fact that you took your time to find us.
Well, we had attended North Point with Andy Stanley when we were in Alpharetta. The actual main campus was only a few miles from our house.
Okay.
And we had heard about it, and we just thought, oh, it sounds so big. It sounds so big. There's like an overflow room. Finally, we ended up going, and it was wonderful, the music.
Yeah.
We walked in, and so anyway, we had been really involved in North Point.
And Andy communicates like you're the only person in the room anyway, right?
Yes, yes. But he's hard to connect with. And so anyway, when we were living in the remote area of South Carolina, we just continued to give to North Point and watch online. And then when we moved here, we said we have to find a church. Instead of visiting all these churches, we started watching online.
That's kind of the front door these days.
Well, that's what we wanted to, instead of showing up. And anyway, so there were a lot we watched, and then we got to yours one day, and I would love to go back and see which one. I think it might have been one where you were hilarious because you were saying, what the heart wants. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, that's right. What the heart wants.
Yes,
Yep.
and you get, and I thought.
It's probably around this time of the year, I think.
Anyway, so I was like, wow. But we watched it and we looked at each other and we said, I think this might be it. And then we showed up.
The preacher's mentally ill. He's already
and we just showed up and people were friendly. And then, like I said, it was God's timing because we had just traveled, and I care for my father, who is an hour and a half away with Parkinson's, and we have grandchildren in Alabama, and then we have our daughter newly married in Tampa, so we were pulled a lot of directions. So we show up to the church, and sure enough, it was Brad at the time, and he was doing connections, and at the time, they did it 3 weeks in a row, and sure enough, they said the next week it wasn't starting, and we were going to be out of town. The first 3 weeks in the entire year we had been living here that lined up that we were in town, if that's not a God wink.
Right.
So we said, okay. So we went and we plugged in immediately. And then you came up, walked up to us. You saw the book in our hand, and that was impressive, and shook his hand, talked to us. And anyway, we thank him every day for connecting us with your church.
We so are very much as well, too. You guys have really jumped in the connections level and helping to make people feel welcome and pastorally cared for and part of the care team. And just deeply grateful for that because, part of what I love the most is putting people where they fit the most and where I hate putting square pegs in round holes. And y'all could do anything because you've been everywhere, right? And you know how to adjust and move and practice intelligence in various kinds of ways to move in different kinds. I remember at Charlotte, I went there at first when I was an undergraduate. And I remember in the freshman psychology class, we learned the definition of intelligence. And essentially, it was Isaac Asimov, the guy that was a science fiction writer. I don't know why he was quoted in a psychology textbook, but he was. He said, the ability to adapt to any situation in which you live is essentially what intelligence is.
Oh.
And so you guys qualify on multiple levels. Mental intelligence, social intelligence, emotional intelligence.
We try.
You've got to have them.
Maybe we fooled you.
No, that's good. So tell us about your family, your extended family. You have family members that are still up in Wilson too? Or no? They're all around
everybody, here? So my parents now live in Flat Rock, North Carolina.
Flat Rock, okay.
And they're both 84. And I told you my father, he was a physician, chief of staff of the hospital, brilliant, very articulate. He's been fighting Parkinson's for about 8 years or so.
I'm sorry.
And it's rapidly declining. But, and my mom is the full-time caregiver at 84.
Wow.
So I try to go when I can. And his passion was for food insecurity. Mine has always been senior citizens. I've always volunteered at senior centers. And now instead of doing that, I am putting all my time and effort into caring for my dad.
That's awesome. Thanks for being such a good daughter.
Well, I love doing it.
Good stuff. And so, and your parents?
So my mom lives in Sparta, North Carolina, right up on the Virginia border. Okay. And I have a brother that lives in Greenville, North Carolina. So he and his family are there. I still have several aunts and uncles and cousins that still live in Wilson. And my dad passed away unexpectedly when he was 62. And so yeah, he's been gone for, it's hard to believe, 14, 15 years now. But yeah, hard to believe. But
so tell us the story that you told me about how everybody in your town worked at the glass factory or the fiberglass factory where your dad worked.
Glass factory.
Tell us about how you decided you had a career, different career in mind after that happened.
Yeah. So
your dad was a big part of this, right?
My dad was a very big part of it. My dad was big. So my dad was a third generation glass factory worker. And my parents grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania, and then I grew up in North Carolina. But so my uncles, my grandfather, my great grandfather, my dad, everybody worked in the glass factory, and so my parents were big on education. Just education. Just take the time, figure it out, get educated, and they were always kind of harping on that. And I remember my dad. You had to be 12 years old, take a tour of the glass factory. Okay. And glass factory, if you don't know, is much like a steel mill, same concept, right? Mm-hmm. Melting a bunch of stuff, putting it together, creating glass, comes out the other end as a glass bottle. Right. And it's about 120 degrees in the hot end, what they call the hot end of glass factory. And that's where all my relatives worked, was in the hot end, big furnaces, 20 and 30 feet high. I mean, just these massive things, loud, like none of them could hear worth a lick, right? Everybody lost their hearing kind of thing. My dad would come home with burns and, it was just crazy. But worked from the time he was 17 years old, he worked in a glass factory. Well, he told me, he said, so I'm going to show you what your future looks like if you don't get an education. Because, I was 15 years old, 12 years old, typical 12-year-old, right? I knew everything. Goofing off in school, that kind of thing. Who needs to go to college? I'm going to be in the NFL, right? Yeah. Okay. Who needs to go to college?
You played football in high school, right?
I did.
At which high school?
Fike. Wilson Fike.
Wilson Fike. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So anyway, he said, I'm going to show you what your life's going to look like. And so he took me, and now I knew all these guys, right? Because, they'd known me since I was born. Yep. And so we walk in the men's locker room, and there's kind of like a shower area, and there's these huge swinging doors. And so we get all like safety glasses and hearing protection and all this. And I know all the guys walking around, right? And my dad looks at me and says, okay, this is what your future looks like if you don't get an education. And I'm telling you, Ray, he opened that door and it was like he opened the gates of hell.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And I had no idea that this is how these guys lived and worked every day to provide for their families. And it was crazy. It was loud. It was hot. It was sweating. There was stuff flying everywhere. Yeah. And it made such an indelible impression upon me that, you know what? Get an education. Yeah. Get an education. Go do something different.
So I'm curious, immediately after that, as you're riding home, what was that like? Was it like, hey, Dad, I'm going to work hard on my math class today or whatever?
It was a quiet ride home. Because I was in shock. Like I had, you just take for granted the things that your dad does, like to work. And it was so profound to me that he was doing those things to provide for us as a family. Right. And, you know, you start rethinking, you know, I can't get that pair of shoes I want to get, right? Because now you realize what's happening and what he's putting into this and how committed he is to his family and that sort of thing. And it just made me, even at 12 years old, just contemplate that, right? About, boy, this is not an easy life, you know? And
so do you sometimes at the end of the day, as you continue to grow up, kind of like just say, thank you, Dad?
All the time.
Made you more thankful because you'd experienced that. So there's a secret. If you don't like your job, take your kid to work. Anyway, but also what an incredibly honorable thing to do. The very best thing you could do to provide for your family. And like a steel mill, I get in Pittsburgh up in the northwest corner of Pennsylvania.
Yes, yeah.
So they kind of got their same manufacturing
idea.
methods to manufacture steel and glass as well.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow, that's powerful. And it also makes you grateful for people in our country that produce steel and produce glass and understand the hard work that they do. They're heroic to do.
And the other thing that it really hit home with me is it's not like you're not measured as a man or a person by what's in your bank account. It's who you are as a person.
Right.
And just the character. And, you know, my dad used to say all the time, it's the character thing, right? So it's what you do when no one else is looking, right?
Right.
And I mean, he was just big into like that kind of thing and just doing the right thing. And I think that
like feeding the cheerleaders on the bus, right, Leslie?
Yes. Yes.
What did they feed you, by the way? I heard you like cold cuts and stuff. And
they probably had fried chicken, and maybe they got it from Kentucky Fried Chicken, or maybe she made it. I don't know, but it was just
It's probably Parker's Barbecue.
It was probably Parker's Barbecue, fried chicken, corn sticks, something like that.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that says a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly who they were.
Wow.
Those kind of
Awesome. So help us understand. You guys have come and you've made an immediate impact on us. Help us understand how our church has helped you to take your next step or steps in your journey with Christ. What are some things that God has shown you through this process?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think here's where the point has made a huge difference for me. You know, I've always had this relationship with Jesus that it's kind of I don't want to say it's a check the box kind of thing, but it wasn't really a relationship with Jesus where, you know, I would get down on my knees and pray. I do it every day now, every day. Yeah. And the difference was, I think it changed the types of people that I'm hanging out with. Mm-hmm. Like before it was all about partying and, you know, I go to church and I do those kinds of things and I go help people and, you know, but this is at a whole different level.
Wow.
And I honestly think you set the tone for that, quite frankly.
Glory to God. Thank you.
But I think it is like we're in the fantasy football league together, right, with Brent. And
right. Brent, by the way, everybody is behind the microphone, behind the cameras. We had 5 leagues in our church, and he is the champion of them all.
There he is.
So anyway, and he came out of our group because we were such good competition, right, John?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
He holds the belt.
Exactly. But immediately, I started to connect with people like you and with Brent and Keanu and Bryce and Roger and Justin, Scott Iapshire. I mean, the list goes on, right? And Brian Birch. I mean, it just goes on, and it's people that I had deeper connections with in such a short period of time that it made just a huge difference in not just my relationship with Jesus, because I learned from each of you, but hanging out with like-minded people, and we had the same goals in mind. And I think that, like, we would get on our Tuesday night calls, and Lesley will tell you, like, I'd come out of that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel so energized coming out of that call, just being able to just get some stuff off my heart, hear what you guys have going on. But those connections to me have been priceless, and I've never, ever, ever had that.
That's amazing.
At a church before.
And the things and the places that you've been to, and we're just grateful that you were ripe at that moment to get connected to, because you've added so much value to us as well too.
I've really seen that in him, because my whole life I have always had friends of mine that were strong Christians, starting in middle school, being part of youth groups, being Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I've always, and there is a time in our life, and I won't say the place or anything, but there was a group of friends, and it was a lot of fun, but they were not strong Christians. If they were, they didn't practice. Mm-hmm. I don't know what was in their heart, but we would go to these things, and he would end up staying so late, and the way the women talked about their housekeepers, etc. It wasn't me at all. So
Yeah.
I've always tended to hang around people that make me a better person.
Right.
And that inspire me to be a better Christian and don't judge and compassion and grace. And I've seen a huge change in him. And he's like, this is awesome. All you guys. And so I've had that my whole life. I've tended to find these groups of women. And so
Because you're friendly and outgoing yourself.
And well, thank you. But I'm really happy that he's realized this. And now he looks back and realized what I was trying to say. We weren't doing anything wrong. But it was just, I said, why do we want to hang around these people that the way they talk and what they talk about, it's not making us better people. Yeah. So, but I just love the fact that everyone we meet in the church, one of the first times Roger and his wife, Crystal, invited us out to lunch. I love the church because it feels truly like a family. And growing up Episcopalian, that's what I grew up. It was very formal. Mm-hmm. There was a reverend, beautiful church, very formal. Did not have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ because it was just, you sit, you listen to the sermon, but it was then joining these FCA and all these. But one impression is going to the Methodist church that his family joined, that was also the one that my boyfriend was. But I went to the Methodist church and they talked in church, like made an announcement, like, we do in your church. But that did not happen in the Episcopal church. I almost fell out of my chair. Yeah. I was like, wait.
What are people doing talking besides
they're standing here and they're talking and then they had a Wednesday night supper. And I loved that. So what I feel is community with the Point Church.
Awesome.
And we feel community and we feel like we're connecting with so many people. There's neighbors in our neighborhood that we didn't even know go to our church. So it's the right place, the right time. And we're just grateful God put us where he did at that time.
And we're grateful too. I'm just grateful for your paying attention to what God told you to do as well too. So of the places you've lived, what place do you, besides this one, you love where you're living now, where do you miss the most? Where was the best place you lived?
Oh, wow.
I wonder if, you always tell married people, they look at each other before they answer questions because they want to make sure they don't get in trouble. I love it.
I think Alpharetta, Georgia, because we raised our kids there.
Yeah.
We moved there when Bradley was in 3rd grade and Samantha was in kindergarten.
Okay.
And we broke the year and a half, so it's not as traumatic, after the winter break, the Christmas break. And so all the memories of the sports and everything and all the families, you have so much connection with all the kids, your families your kids are doing sports with and dance and all that. Right. So I think that was the fun memories of raising the children there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Same?
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. I think Alpharetta, I love each of them for their own reasons, and they were all a different stage of life. Mm-hmm. But I think, Alpharetta, like Leslie said, they were in 3rd grade and kindergarten, the kids. They're 32 and 29 now.
Right.
So
just picturing the trick-or-treating on Halloween, and it was a really nice neighborhood, about 200 homes. So, and that's where they think of as home when they think of where they were raised. So, and we were there 17 and a half years.
Wow.
So.
Amazing. So tell us what Bradley and Samantha do now.
So, excuse me, Bradley works for Cintas.
Okay.
And he's a general manager. He runs all of northern Alabama.
Okay.
And he and his wife, Lindsay, and our 2 granddaughters live in Trussville, Alabama.
And what are your granddaughters' names?
Mary Layton and Maddie.
Good.
6 and 4.
Fantastic.
Yeah, adorable. I'm not biased at all.
Oh, okay. That's
unlimited budget, Mr. Scary. I call him Scary Ops Guy for our finances, but unlimited budget for the grandchildren.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And then our daughter, Samantha, whom you've met,
yes,
and her husband, Donovan. They live in Tampa, Florida. She's a guidance counselor at elementary school, and she's just got a special passion for kids. And you talk about someone who is just a blessing to the kids that she works with. And she taught for a number of years, took a little break, went back, got her graduate degree, and then went back as a guidance counselor. And she's absolutely amazing, as is Donovan. I mean, it's a 1 and 1 makes 3 with both of our kids and the people that they found. That's for sure.
That's awesome. So what does Donovan do? Because he's a former military guy, right?
Yes, he went to West Point, played football at West Point,
right?
And then he was an airborne ranger in the 82nd Airborne.
Yep.
But he works in financial planning and analysis now.
Excellent.
With a private equity firm, a bank that's has a private equity arm to it.
And is Lindsay taking care of the girls full time from home, or is she working outside the home too?
She was a elementary teacher, just like our Samantha.
Okay.
And with a minor in special needs, and she taught for a while, but she just got a position at Mayor Layton School to tutor or help with children that are struggling to read. So she's got a wonderful job, and it's the same hours. So she just went back.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's fantastic. There's nothing like it.
There's nothing.
I love what somebody said. Grandparents are the first toys that children learn how to play with.
That's good. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I definitely experienced that as well too. So you've been a lot of places and had lots of experiences and things like that. As you've grown together and grown to know each other better and grown to know the world better, where do you think God's taking you next? What do you think is your next step? You've jumped back into the corporate world and worked for a large corporation. It's out of Manhattan, I think, because you said you have meetings there all the time, right?
Private equity firm is, yeah.
Right. So private equity, for those of you that don't know, that's kind of like NASDAQ stocks and penny stocks and people that are startups and those kind of things. And tell us about your business.
Yeah, so it's PayScale is the name of the business.
PayScale?
Yeah, and we provide salary benchmarking for big companies all across the country. So we're the world's largest provider of that.
So you want to know how much you should be making? You need to get the PayScale.
I'm your guy. But yeah, great company. I love the passion that people have for what we do. It's all about pay equity and pay transparency and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's a great organization. And the idea is to come back, do it all over again, and this will be the last one. I'll be done.
So it's recorded in this podcast.
Oh, okay.
You heard that?
He said that.
Okay, so you heard it, right?
Yeah,
he said that.
I can see him doing some consulting or something, but this one, yeah.
Yeah, Leslie says I'm the worst person at retiring in the world. So yeah.
Well, retiring is refiring kind of for some people,
well,
right?
and I love it. He was going a little stir crazy, but it would be nice to have a balance. And right now he's all in, and he needs to be.
Sure.
But I think this is the forever home. I see us traveling some, but being involved in the church and just visiting the grandkids. And
how long of a drive is it to Alabama?
6 hours going, but it feels like 5 because of the time change.
Okay.
Coming back 7, it feels like. So a lot more fun to go.
So is it near Birmingham? You kind of go
yes.
that way?
Yeah, just north of Birmingham. It's like a northern suburb.
What's the name of it?
Trussville.
Trussville. Okay.
Yeah.
So Darryl Robinson and Francine, who just sat on that couch on a couple of days ago.
Oh, really?
And who've gone on the screen as well, that probably we published before yours will. He's from Birmingham as well.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Good Birmingham people.
Daryl's from Birmingham?
He is.
Because I read all about him too. Because I remember I walked into the prayer room to meet him, and I said,
"Who's this guy?"
I said, "I've been reading about you," and he said, "You have?" He said, "Where?" And I told him, and he said, "Wow." So.
About that. Yeah, they're wonderful people too.
They are.
So since let's go to kind of the random kind of thing here. So said you'd like to do some traveling. Where do you want to go that you haven't gone? Or where do you want to go back? Why don't we do both of those questions in order? Where would you want to go and where would you want to go back?
I've never been to Australia. I've been to Europe. I had traveled a lot before. John, he had never been out of the country. And then with Ceridian, he traveled all over. So I've heard Australia is amazing. So I'd like to go to Australia.
Okay.
Barcelona, he went, and then he told us it was great. So my daughter and I went she was traveling all over Europe. She saved up her money, took some time off and traveled. And I met her in Barcelona. That is one of the neatest. I would love to go back. The food, the people, it was beautiful. So I'd like to go back there, and I'd like to go back there with him because we've been separately.
Awesome. How about you?
Yeah, I think where I'd like to go to Alaska.
Okay.
Never been to Alaska.
You can do that.
Yeah. So I knew a bunch of guys in the military who'd been to Alaska, or had been stationed in Alaska, loved it. So I would love to go to Alaska.
Okay.
Where I'd love to go back to, I would say Sydney. I'd like to go back to Sydney.
Okay, so you've been there before.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. And Barcelona. Either one of those two. But I'd also stateside. I'd love to go back to Montana. We went this summer.
Yeah.
And for a family friend got married out there, and it was phenomenal. I love to trout fish, like fly fish, and I fly fish all over the mountains out here in North Carolina.
10 to 2.
That's it. You got it. You got it. You're 80% of the way there.
Yeah. No, I haven't had a lesson. That's about it.
But I would love to go back and do more of that. We went fly fishing. Donovan and I actually went fly fishing for a day out there, but I'd love to go back and spend about a week doing that.
What did you catch? Trout?
Trout, yeah.
Okay.
Well, when we were there, they said it's actually not the prime time, but they wanted to experience it. But all the runoff from the mountains, so it is not a gentle. It is a roaring.
Oh yeah, roaring.
It was not the Linville River. I know that.
No.
You had to put some spikes on your shoes,
Pretty much.
Washed away.
Well, they tried to just take them to because you could see the whole river the whole time you're going to where we were staying,
right.
And they would try to get them in little outposts where it wasn't running so rapidly.
So I'm curious. So in Barcelona, how is what we think of as Hispanic food different than? So is it tacos and burritos, or what is it like in Spain?
No, it's totally tapas.
Paella
and tapas. It's really, really good.
It's like folded sandwiches. Is that what they are?
No.
No.
Paella is a big skillet.
Okay.
And there's a very authentic restaurant in Atlanta that we went to, so Samantha and her best friend could show the moms what they were eating there. But it's you made it in a class.
Yeah, it's like rice and all kinds of shellfish and seafood. But the funny thing about Barcelona is that when I went, it was on business, and we went to dinner at like 9:00, and we walked in, there was no one in the restaurant, and the waiter comes up and says, "Hey, welcome. Where are you from in the States?" And we looked at him like, how'd you know we're from the States? We hadn't said a word. Yeah. He said, because only Americans eat at 9:00. Everyone else will be in here after 10. And sure enough, when we walked out, the place was packed at 10:00.
Then he said the next morning he got up because he wanted to stay away from the jet lag. So you just get up, and he said everybody was walking home from the bars when he was getting up to take a jog on the beach.
Like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
They had been there all night. He got up at 6 in the morning, and they're all just coming home.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Samantha and I didn't.
That's why they take naps in the afternoon,
right?
Yeah. Which I think is a great idea.
Exactly.
Absolutely. The older I get, it's kind of like, man, that sounds good. Siesta. We need to do that at church.
But the church that's there, the La Sagrada Familia, that is incredible. Yeah. Incredible. And there's light comes in at a certain time through this. It's breathtaking.
It's spectacular, huh?
Yeah.
Is that near where the walk to, what do they call it? The walk to, it's like a pilgrimage. It ends on top of this mountain where there's a Christ figure or a Mary figure. I can't remember. The walk, it's not the walk to Emmaus, it's walk to something else.
Is it there in Barcelona?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I think this is more toward the West Coast.
Yeah. You can walk up to the mountains, and it's where Gaudí has a thing up there.
Right.
Yes, because my daughter lured me across from the sea to the mountains by saying, we can stop for a sangria. Okay. She had a little currant carrot, I called it, and she would say, we'll stop for a sangria. We walked the whole way. We told the people in the hotel, and they said, you did what?
Yeah.
She said, well, we can stop for sangria. I love sangria.
It just took like 3 or 4 hours to get to the sangria.
It took forever. Yeah. I didn't get enough of the sangria.
She needed to go back to get more, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. So, if I remember correctly, you're both big Pittsburgh Steelers fans, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you There you go. All right. Did you spend some time up there as part of your career?
Well, we actually, because I grew up in a Pittsburgh Steelers household,
right?
My parents were from northwestern Pennsylvania. Right. We actually had the opportunity to buy season tickets.
Okay.
And so we had the season tickets for about 7 years, and we went to every home game, no matter where we lived. So we would fly from Atlanta or from South Carolina to Pittsburgh for every home game. So,
you're real fans of them.
We are diehard.
Mike Tomlin, are you listening?
Oh,
really, they're pulling for you next year.
There you go.
Well, gotta get that Justin Fields, Russell Wilson things.
Get that figured out.
Well, and what's crazy is Don and Samantha went to Aruba on their honeymoon, and everyone thought he was Russell Wilson.
Oh,
it's funny. He's more handsome than Russell Wilson. But also one of his very best friends, Elijah Riley, played for the Steelers. He just got traded last year. But so we were hoping we had an in with Mike, because Mike seems like a great guy, Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. I've told people if I had one coach to pick, that had the coach for my life, that's who I'd pick.
Yeah. Or Tony Dungy.
Yeah, I like Tony Dungy. Absolutely. Yeah. He's in retirement. He could come back out, though.
Yeah.
But I love Tomlin because he's like, after they lose, he's like, I'm a bad coach. I need to coach better. You know, he doesn't throw anybody under the bus except himself.
I know. He's a great leader.
I really appreciate that.
And a faithful one. I like his faith.
Absolutely. So what are some important things in your life? Do you have, I know lots of important things in your life. Are there certain things that you live by, like maxims your parents told you? Certainly character on the outside is what was what you were on the inside. Are there other things you remember from your parents that are like pithy, short life lessons you could share with people, or just you've learned on your own?
I think my mom, every year at Christmas, you know, your church picks people. And my mom, I don't know why I was the only child that went. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. But I just remember she would get a list of someone, and this man lived in a really poor part of town, and he wanted a pair of Levi's blue jeans. And I remember my mom bought him 5 pairs, and it's not that she was trying to overdo it, but she probably figured he wasn't able to wash very much. So he would have 5 clean pairs of jeans. But I just remember every year going with her to whichever house we were going to, and you went yourselves. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You went alone, so my mom and I went, and just the way people lived, that was very different from how I lived, and the appreciation, so that stuck with me. And same thing in Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I remember one year we went, a lady had put a wish list, and so we get to go. And to me, it's important to actually boots on the ground kind of thing. And
you want to go, you just want somebody to deliver it for you.
Because you don't, it's like what he saw when he went in the glass factory. It's just, so we went, and this woman lived in a trailer with 4 children, single mom. The kids' names are Faith, Hope, I forget the other. Her wish list was lotion, a warm robe, slippers. This isn't like I want an I want, and then toys for the children. And so, like, I specifically remember that little man with a little 1-pot burner in a 1 room, and, us bringing the Levi's. And then, of course, she brought him groceries and all kinds of other stuff. And just that, and then the lady that I still to this day see that trailer and the appreciation that she had. So just those things to me have just really stood out. So I just always want to be able to, I feel very blessed in my life. So to just always do everything I can to help other people.
That's awesome. Wow. Led by example, by good parents. That's cool. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I said before, right? It's. I think my dad, my mom, and my dad, it was all about not what's in your bank account, it's who you are as a person, kind of thing. And my dad was a character. Like he was a character. And
kind of like Kenny Chesney, and he would hold court in any room he went.
Yeah, he used to say all the time, you either light up a room when you walk in or walk out. Right? and he was a walk in kind of guy. And so yeah, I think that just my mom and dad went through some times together, and I ended up getting divorced after being married for a long time, and they were really young when I was born. And we kind of all grew up together. And I remember him coming back to me saying, look, at the end of the day, man, make your stand with your family. And that's what it's all about. Like, no matter what happens, it's about your family. And that's where you make your stand. And you do whatever you have to do to protect that.
Amen.
Yeah. I remember his dad lost his job when you were in high school. And so here I am. I'm a doctor's daughter. He lives in a trailer park. And anyway, very small town. And you know what his dad did, though? He went and pumped gas at a gas station. Right there, right near our houses. So that's something that's always stood out to me. His dad and I were super close. When he was away, his dad and I'd go fishing. And
wow.
Oh, I've been close to their family, like I said, since I was 16. But he said that showed him so much, that just don't be ashamed. He was more willing to go do whatever job it took to support his family, and stood there proud, whatever, pumping people's gas in Wilson.
So in addition to glass factory work, he's working a second job to help make it possible for you to make it to school and stuff.
Well, in some cases, in the glass factory, times were down, you get laid off.
Yeah, and you had to go do something like that.
Exactly. Go do something like that until they call you back to work kind of thing.
Wow.
And he worked shift work his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's all I ever knew growing up. I just assumed everybody kind of did that. I didn't know any different.
Right.
And so, yeah, he was,
His mom would have to put the two boys in the car to go pick him up because they had one car. I mean, on school nights, but load the boys in the back of the car sleeping to go get.
Wow.
Dad.
Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
Anyway, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Just watching him as an example and, makes my life seem pretty easy. I got to be honest.
Well, it's powerful. And man, we need to cut that piece out right there. We're just talking about family for people that are in our congregation. And there's such an attack on the family. And if you don't have enough of it, man, this thing makes it easy to do it.
Right.
The world is flat, and this is a wonderful tool or it's an evil tool. It depends on how you use it, right? It's an amoral tool, but he's really divided people and conquered people in many respects, right?
Absolutely.
So let me ask you some random questions in our last few minutes together. So ice cream or cake?
Ice cream.
What kind?
Mint chocolate chip.
All right, good deal. How about for you?
Oh, I'm ice cream all day.
Right,
hot
deal.
fudge sundae, man.
All right.
I'm a hot fudge sundae guy.
All right, so have you been to Tony's yet?
You know who told me about that? Was Justin told me about
Yeah,
Tony.
You got to go to Tony's,
We haven't.
man.
Where is Tony's?
Tony's is in Gastonia. It's
Okay.
right on Highway 74, and it's kind of a legendary place.
Okay.
Years ago, Gastonia was named an All-American City a couple times, and part of the reason was they flew Tony's ice cream to wherever they were deciding to feed the judges, and it's pretty amazing stuff.
Okay. All right. We will get.
Might be
Tony's.
dessert tonight.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. It's worth the drive, I promise you.
Okay.
And they're like 7:30 to 9 o'clock every night.
Really?
Okay.
Including Sundays. I think they have Sunday hours
Wow.
as well. But Tony Coletta is the owner of that. Tony,
Okay.
shout out. I always see you sitting at the table when I'm getting my cup of
Oh.
Almond Joy is my favorite. It's
Almond
kinda-
Joy.
Oh, it's
Oh, no, I
amazing.
love an Almond Joy candy bar.
Oh, it's amazing. They kind of make
Okay.
it
Oh,
coconut
okay.
in it and almonds and chocolate. Just
Okay.
magical. Put it in a waffle cone.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
make you just enjoy life.
All right.
So, steak restaurants or fancy restaurants? I know there's fancy steak restaurants too.
He's a big steak guy.
All right.
I love vegetables, but
About let's say steak, Texas Roadhouse kind of restaurants, or oh gosh, what are some of the fancy ones? I don't go there, so I don't know them as much. Ruth's Chris, Ruth's Chris, or a French restaurant. Put it that way.
we're more down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal.
That song "Bougie Like Applebee's"
Yeah,
on a
okay.
date night.
There you go. That's when you're stepping out, right? You put the high heels on before you go to Applebee's.
That's it. Give me a
Yeah.
wooden floor and a good steak. I'm good, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where's the best steak? Where do you get it?
Wow.
Or where's the best steak around here? in your
Around
opinion?
here.
The downtown Belmont.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
Or no, where it could be Charlotte, wherever you can drive within 30, 45 minutes.
Well, see, I like to grill my own steaks.
Oh, Whistler's Grills.
Yes.
We will have you over because I like red meat, but it's not my first choice. But
Yeah.
he can cook an amazing steak.
Yeah.
It's almost not worth going to a restaurant.
Yeah, I understand. Best cooking's at home.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. And how about for you before I throw this back in here? What was your favorite kind of restaurant? You just like to go Southern cooking?
I love pasta, Italian. So
Okay.
Italian would be, I love Italian.
Try Milano's in Gastonia sometime too. That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
One night, Phyllis, who was a core member of our church when we first started, and I were at another church where we served in the Awana program, and we also led children singing, that kind of stuff. So one night we're sitting there, and I said, "What did you have for dinner?" She said, "Well, I had to do something fast because the kids were here, and we had to get them here in a hurry." And I said, "Man, nothing just says love. I love you to me like my wife making me a nice home cooked meal." Well, I didn't know this, but the next Wednesday night she came home. She said, "Ray Hardy, I got a bone to pick with you.
Oh!
I've been cooking since last Wednesday night just to show the world that I love my family." I said, "I am so sorry.
That's
I did not
hilarious.
mean it that way."
That's hilarious.
Anyway,
He's more of the cook. I cook, but he loves it. And even after working hard, but now he doesn't have time, so I'm stepping up. And I do like to, and we like to cook together, but he just loves it. But
that's a great thing to do together.
yes,
It's fun.
but I want fancy pasta and kale, and he calls that foo food or something.
Like bird food or
He
something.
wants
Exactly.
meat, potatoes,
Barbecue.
Yeah.
You know,
peas
oh, yeah.
and mayonnaise, which I don't even think should go together, but
Peas and mayonnaise.
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Help me.
Come on, Ray. Come on.
help me.
No. He just takes the peas in the can and puts them in a thing, stirs in the mayonnaise, and puts them in the fridge.
All right. Okay.
No, sorry.
I've heard a lot of things.
So that's the problem. I would cook some fancy. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do like kale with slivered almonds and coconut milk and quinoa, and then a balsamic. Anyway, we're very different.
I like it. So Netflix or Amazon Prime? Whatever, right? There we
Pick one. I'm going Amazon Prime because of Thursday Night Football.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
I'm going Amazon just because everything we order shows up at Amazon, and I always sing it's Christmas time.
It's always cool.
WHISNER.
Here comes Amazon in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know.
You know, during the COVID and stuff like that, I ran into an Amazon driver at Ollie's discount place, and it was after kind of the world had opened somewhat back up. But I said, "So you guys have had a really hard time. You've had to deliver stuff in difficult times." And he said, "And they swab us every day.
Really?
They had to do that test every day.
They swabbed them every day.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you imagine?
I cannot imagine.
Oh my
I cannot
gosh.
imagine. So I kind of think of them as kind of heroic in many respects.
Yeah.
We give them a hard time.
Yes.
You gave me the red one, not the green one.
Oh.
Okay, well, drop it off at Kohl's and you'll have your replacement
Yes,
in the morning.
exactly.
Anyway, East Coast or West Coast?
East Coast.
East Coast.
North or South?
South.
Good deal. Atlanta or
Yeah.
Charlotte?
Oh, I'm saying Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Atlanta's traffic it got too much.
Yeah, we're trying to be just like them.
You know what? It's all in perspective because when we left 17 years from Atlanta and we moved to Fairplay, South Carolina, then you're on those country roads for 30 minutes and you're saying, oh, this is great. And especially if you listen to the traffic that's happening in Atlanta, you're
Right.
like, oh. But then it lasted a few years. And then Friday night, we just want to grab some, have food delivered to our house. No food delivery, no Uber, nothing.
Right.
So an hour trek to go pick up Chinese food to get home. So anyway, it's all in perspective. So it was very nice at first. And then we wanted to be able to get to a grocery store and back within less than an hour.
Isn't that true? That's kind of a great perspective about life. Sometimes your dream can become your nightmare.
Mhm.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, when we called our realtor and we said, we're actually going to sell, she said,
You're the architect in the family too, kind of, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember you showed me you kind of designed the house and stuff.
Yeah. I did all the renovations. I designed it all. But I called her and I said, we're going to move. And she said, I didn't want to tell you, but the average years on the lake to stay right on the lake there was 7 years. 7 years on the dot.
Wow, how about that?
So
That's amazing. Wow, how about that? So cruises or plane-fed vacations, I'll put it that way. You going like planes?
Love
You like cruises?
cruises.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fun.
Disney, Carnival.
Disney. Oh no, the cruise is Royal Caribbean. We've
Royal
done.
Caribbean. Okay.
But
Royal Caribbean.
Speaking of Alaska, though, I turned 60 this year.
Congratulations.
And we were going to do an Alaska cruise, but I figure we have time to do that another time because we rented a place at the beach for our whole family, like just kids, the grandkids, to all come together for my birthday. So,
Fantastic.
But we will do that Alaskan cruise.
Mhm.
That's awesome. It's coming up.
Yeah.
Republican or Democrat? No. Don't answer that question. Don't answer that question. We had enough fights politically.
Oh,
that kind of
that's
stuff.
hilarious.
Oh, boy.
I think we're on the same side.
Chicken or pork?
Chicken.
Okay. There we go. Oh, no. There we go.
Is it fried or
Grill.
is it chopped?
It's on the grill? Is it on the grill?
Yeah, I'm going to go fried chicken, but pulled pork. How about that?
King James Version or the New Living Translation or New International Version?
New
What version?
International.
Okay.
I do want to read the new one that he's reading. That's like a
Yeah, the one you told me about,
Okay.
books of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been reading
fantastic.
that thing ever since you told me about it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So that's it. Actually, it's the NIV, and it's just
Yeah.
got the numbers and the pages kicked out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for those that are watching, Zondervan that has published the NIV for years, and the revisions of the NIV or New International Version have this version of the book called the Books of the Bible, and essentially it's all the books and the pages without no page numbers. There are page numbers, but there's not any chapter numbers or verses numbers. So just like you're reading a book.
Okay.
It's really cool
Really
to look
good.
at it.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and what came out a few years ago called the Message Bible that was supposed to be like a book also?
Well, Message is kind of Eugene Peterson, who translated it, would say, he was a Greek and Hebrew scholar. He calls it a translation. Most people that are scholars say it's more of a paraphrase.
Okay.
Or more of just our free translation as opposed to one that's more like that.
Okay.
So any parting wisdom for the people that are out there that you would want to share with them about life, about family, about building a good life together?
Never give up.
Mm-hmm.
And a big thing is to always treat each other, give each other the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of times in a marriage, because this happened to us too, you don't treat each other the way you would someone brand new, because you get used to things and things that they think are cute at first, like changing the air conditioning or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it gets to be annoying.
Yeah.
So
who told you to turn that down?
so
Turn that up.
The first time he ever took the little break to do community service, it was challenging. And so I said, you know what? We have got to go back and pretend that we are dating, or that, like, because if we, not that we'd get divorced, but if you did, and then these people make their best self and then they go out and give their best to someone else.
Right.
So why not take the person you've been in love with forever? And so I said, let's pretend. So if I go to do don't immediately be like, oh God, here she goes again.
Yeah.
So we did that. And I think that helps.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking it out. Talking it out. I think trust me, I'm not the best at it, but I think communication, respect, all those kinds of things, and never losing sight of all you built together. I mean, we started out with nothing.
Literally nothing.
Yeah. And just looking back at it, and it's fun, right? It's fun just to sit and reflect sometimes. So it's important to reflect and just realize all you built and the positive that you put into the world through your kids in particular. Yeah. And it's gratifying.
Well, thank you for making us better today by letting us understand and sharing your story. John and Lesley, Lesley, right?
Yes,
that's the way we spell it.
Thank you.
Listener. And,
Thank you.
You guys get to meet them as you see them at the church or whatever. If you see them out in the grocery stores or at Tony's Ice Cream,
yes,
just make sure to introduce yourselves. And just thank you so much for sharing life with us.
So
that's a wrap for now for episode number 50. And we thank John and Lesley for being with us. And we'll see you next time for episode 51.